One of the things that you may want to do with your BadgeBuilder system is to go through and make some program configurations. So let's go through and look at the configuration menu now. One of the things you want to do if you don't already have it is to open up the database that you're working with, because some of the configurations are database specific. Once you've opened up your database, let's go up and open up the configuration menu and take a look at some of the options that are available in it. Some of them we'll just talk about, some of them we'll actually go and take a look at. The first one is user information. This is very simple information that allows you to fill in basically some information about your company or about yourself as an individual. Allows you to put in your name, the address, and the city, and state, and zip code, and so forth of your organization. And it is information that you can potentially use during your card design or to assign to your card if you wish to. So it's information that can be filled in, certainly not required, but that's what that's there for. The program setup piece actually has configuration settings that affect basically the overall operation of the program. And we're going to come back to that in just a minute after we've talked about a couple of the other features that appear in the menu. Setting a dossier template. Dossier is a feature that is available in all of the various different levels of the BadgeBuilder software, and the idea behind the dossier template is that you might want to be able to print out a full-sized 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with details about an individual that you might like to put in a file that you perhaps is a personnel record or something like that, but isn't really a card design that you would use for standard printing of a card. And that's what that is actually used there for. Setting of data entry control is a functionality that allows you to specify a number of different ways of entering data. One of them has to do with allowing you to specify drop-down boxes, so that if instead of people having to manually enter information, they can enter information by selecting something from a drop-down list. You also have the ability to lock and or hide fields so that people who are less than a supervisor or a master level user actually either can't change or can't even see the contents of the field, but if you are logged in at a higher level, that you're actually able to see that data and also be able to change it without any trouble. Set magnetic encoding. This goes to specifically to encoding information on a magnetic stripe using a PVC card printer that is supported by the program. And what you would be doing here is to specify one of multiple types of different tracks, either track 1, track 2, or track 3 on the magnetic stripe, either in combination or singly. And what you can do there is to actually specify information from the person's record that will allow you to specify that you want to encode that information directly on the card during the print process, and that's where this would be done. Setting of smart card encoding. BadgeBuilder supports what's called MyFair smart card encoding using Magic Card printers, PVC card printers, and the smart cards are contactless, wireless smart cards with an antenna and a chip inside of them, and that information has a complete setup dialog that allows you to specify all of the various different MyFair memory cells and what data should be either read or written to those cells. That gets quite complex and is something that you would need to understand and be familiar with in terms of the MyFair structure of your particular card. You would also have to have the feature enabled in BadgeBuilder and have the proper physical hardware built into your Magic Card printer in order to support that. Setting of the photo file path is a function that allows you to basically go in and change where BadgeBuilder both writes and reads image files for photographs for an individual. And the concept in which you might want to use this is if you've decided that you would like to have all of the photographs stored on a network drive rather than on the local drive, and the system is still looking to save all of the images locally, you'd be able to go in and set the photo file path here, and you would actually be able to specify that the photos should now be found on a network share perhaps versus on the local machine. So you'd be able to change that information here. Read Smart Card goes hand in hand with the Smart Card encoding above and basically provides you an interface in which you can actually use the printer to read in the information out of a Smart Card. Again, MyFair encoding going along with a appropriately outfitted Magic Card printer for MyFair encoding and reading. Configure Team Tracer isn't selected because we aren't actually working with Team Tracer. We're working just in BadgeBuilder. But Team Tracer is another piece of software that includes all the functionality of BadgeBuilder, but also allows you to track and keep track of individuals on a scene. And we'd encourage you to talk to our sales department if that's something that would be of interest to you beyond just providing badges. Set default Twain source. This has to do with the fact that on any one particular computer, you might have one or more sources of selecting information or getting a photograph for a picture, including a digital camera, a scanner. Those are the two major ones. And what happens is that the system needs to be told what the source is that you're going to be selecting from. So if you happen to have a scanner or multiple digital cameras on your system, you need to, and they all support Twain, you'll need to select that in this dialog here to provide the BadgeBuilder system with the knowledge of which camera or scanner that it should be going to get the image from if you use Twain acquisition. Finally, the capabilities of BadgeBuilder can be expanded with the use of optional features. Depending upon the level of BadgeBuilder that you've purchased, you may have more or less optional features enabled. But one of the things that can be done in the field, once you have the software, is that it can be expanded to add additional functionality onto it. And if you were given an enabling code to be able to go in and expand your software, this is where you would go in to do that. Okay, now we've looked through all of the main menu items and described a little bit about what they do. Let's go back into the program setup item that we mentioned earlier and just take a look through some of the functionality there, because it's most likely that you would be coming to this area if you needed to make some configuration choices about the program. Many of these items are self-explanatory and we won't go into them very deeply. Metric units is just as it shows. Double-sided badges, if you want this particular database that you have open and you have double-sided functionality enabled in your system, then you would be able to turn on double-sided badges, you'll be able to print double-sided badges, and you'll be able to design both sides of the badge. Log operations, this allows the system to actually create a log of the information of activity that's been happening on the system, creation of cards, printing of cards, etc. And you need to log this if you're interested in using the reports feature, which will tell you on the screen as part of a printable piece of paper who was logged in, what was added, what was deleted, what was printed. It's an accounting of what's happened during the operation of the program. Supervisor or higher for dossier access, you'll notice is a specific to the database being open. And basically what this is saying is that you should have to be a supervisor or higher in order to be able to use that dossier feature that we mentioned just a few moments ago, which is the full-size sheet of paper. And depending upon what it is that you're trying to create, you might want to limit people to only being able to create badges, not be able to get at full-size access to full information. So that gives you that opportunity to use that. Video capture and print badge in browse mode. Browse mode is the lowest level mode. Browse mode only allows you to do basically what it says, which is to look. However, there are some specific exceptions in which you might want to allow a person very limited access, but increase that access slightly so that they could capture a picture and print a card, but not do anything else, not be able to add a record or edit the record, with the exception of adding the picture. This allows you to increase the functionality of the browse mode very slightly to give people a little bit more capability beyond what they can normally do. Caching of badge design bitmap images. This is a function that was added not too long ago, and this function is designed specifically so that if a badge has a logo on it and it was on a network share and the network share goes away, or the computer is carried away, or the file is accidentally deleted, what have you, that inside of the BadgeBuilder database it keeps a copy of that image. This can help to make the startup times faster if you have a slow network, but it also means that if the image goes away, that is the source image for whatever reason, BadgeBuilder's badge doesn't suddenly have an empty hole in it. It's something that you can turn off that sometimes will create a little bit of overhead if you have a very large image that has to be cached, but generally speaking it's a very useful feature and it is on by default. The final item is the do not show the quick launch wizard, and that's the opening wizard that happens right when you open the program. The quick launch wizard is a relatively new feature, and some people who have been using the program for a long time may prefer to get directly into the program, and so you have the opportunity to turn that off. Looking at some of the other tabs very quickly, there is information in here that allows you to specify what the base year is for dates, if you enter them as 2-digit dates. This originally goes back to dealing with the Millennium bug and the program being capable of that, but it does have a situation in where if you're entering information or dates for people, for birth dates for instance, that are all going to be in the 1900s, that it would be better to have that set as to 19 rather than as to 20. The other thing that you can specify is how detailed you want the time to be, whether you want it to only go down to minutes or whether you'd like it to show you down to seconds. The tab for barcodes, in the design tutorial we talked about barcodes, and one of the things that can happen with barcodes is that depending upon the quality of the barcode readers, sometimes you can have trouble with a particular barcode being too dense or not dense enough for the particular reader in question. Basically what this screen is here to do is to allow you to more finely grained change the ratio of the bars and the spaces to one another so that you can try to fine-tune it for a particular situation. Under normal circumstances, you would just need to leave this at 1.0 and you wouldn't need to touch it, but it is there in case you need to change it. Options for video. BadgeBuilder, as far as video support from video capture cards, can capture both what's called MCI, which is an older interface, and then also Video for Windows, which is a newer interface. And depending upon your system and what it has in it, MCI may or may not be available, although increasingly it's becoming unavailable. So it's quite likely that your source of capturing video for your pictures will either be Twain or will be a Video for Windows driver. If you happen to also be capturing fingerprints, the fingerprint scanner may need to use one interface while you may use the other interface for capturing pictures, and so this allows you to specify which one that you would be selecting for capturing fingerprints and which ones you would be using to capture pictures. Finally, there is some information that helps to try to make things a little bit easier for you in terms of managing databases. And this is something that you probably do not want to mess with unless it's something that you're very familiar with as far as the underlying databases are concerned. Certain databases don't require a username and password, depending upon how they've been configured. Other ones may absolutely require a password. If it's cumbersome or difficult to remember and you would like to have the system remember the username and password for you so that you don't need them every time you log into the software, and again we're talking about the database login now, not the program login for BadgeBuilder, you can put in the username and password here. Server mode operation, I would encourage you, if you're interested in server mode is really something that you would use in a development situation where you were trying to integrate a piece of software with our software, and if you were going to do that, I would suggest that you contact technical support directly and talk to them about how that particular feature works, as it would usually be used in conjunction with some kind of other programming and not individually. The last item here, which you see, is main database synchronization right down the bottom here. And BadgeBuilder, as of version 6, which is new for 2010, has the ability for you to be able to basically clone a database down from a central location so that you can take away a copy, make changes to the copy, and then when you're done making changes to the copy, be able to bring it back to the main station and through a network interface be able to upload the changes from that database back to the main system, so that you have full synchronization in both directions of database changes. Very, very powerful feature, but something that we don't want to turn on by default, so that doesn't cause any confusion. And so, if you do want to use database synchronization as a feature, it is an optional feature, and you would need to come in here to enable the synchronization. And that, in brief, is the configuration and the various different options that you have when you are running a BadgeBuilder system.